Experiment number 1. The Stanford Prison Experiment. August 1971. Stanford University, Psychology Department. Professor Philip Zimbardo designed an experiment. Study prison psychology. Understand guard-prisoner dynamics. Answer question. Does environment create cruelty, or do cruel people seek power? Zimbardo recruited 24 male college students, middle class, psychologically stable, screened for mental health issues, all healthy, normal. He randomly assigned roles, 12 guards, 12 prisoners. Simple coin flip determined fate. The basement of Stanford's psychology building was converted, made to look like prison, cells, bars, small confinement spaces. Guards got uniforms, sunglasses, batons. Prisoners got smocks, numbers. No names, just numbers. Dehumanization immediate. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks. Study how ordinary people behave in prison environment. Zimbardo would observe. Document, learn, simple research. Or so it seemed. Day 1. Guards asserted authority. Prisoners complied. Normal, expected. Day 2. Guards became more aggressive. Prisoners resisted. Guards punished them. Push-ups, solitary confinement, verbal abuse. It escalated quickly. By day 3, guards were inventing cruel punishments, forcing prisoners to clean toilets with bare hands, making them do repeated exercises until exhaustion, denying bathroom privileges. One prisoner broke down, crying, screaming, begging to leave. Zimbardo thought he was faking, trying to quit. He wasn't. He was having genuine psychological breakdown. They let him go. More prisoners broke down. Emotional collapse. One developed psychosomatic rash, stress-induced. His body was rebelling. Guards became more sadistic. Some guards were relatively kind, most weren't. Some actively enjoyed the cruelty, created elaborate punishments, humiliations. They were college students. Days ago, they were normal. Now they were torturers. Zimbardo was lead researcher, but he also played role of prison superintendent. He got absorbed, started thinking like administrator, not scientist. When problems arose, he addressed them as warden, not as researcher protecting subjects. He'd lost objectivity, become part of the experiment. Christina Maslach, Zimbardo's girlfriend and fellow psychologist, visited the experiment. She was horrified. Guards were abusing prisoners. Prisoners were suffering. This wasn't research. This was torture. She confronted Zimbardo, told him to stop. He argued, defended the experiment. She persisted. Finally, he listened. Day 6. Zimbardo terminated the experiment. 8 days early. The 2-week study lasted 6 days. That's how bad it got. In less than a week, ordinary college students became abusive guards. Other students became broken prisoners. The environment transformed them. The findings seem significant. Situations can overpower personality. Good people do terrible things in bad environments. This explained prison abuse, military atrocities, authority corrupts, power corrupts. The situation matters more than character. But there were problems. Serious methodological problems. Zimbardo coached the guards, told them to be tough, create feelings of frustration and powerlessness. He influenced behavior, demand characteristics. The guards knew what was expected. They performed it. The sample size was tiny. 24 people, not randomly selected, self-selected. College students who responded to ad-seeking participants for prison study. These aren't average people. They're people interested in prison study. Selection bias. Later analysis revealed many guards didn't internalize their roles. They were acting, playing parts. Some said they were just doing what they thought experimenters wanted, following instructions, not revealing dark human nature, revealing obedience to authority, which is different. One guard, Dave Eshelman, later admitted he based his behavior on movie character, played role of sadistic prison guard because he thought that's what experiment needed. He was performing. Others might have been too. How many were genuinely transformed? How many were acting? We don't know. The ethical violations were severe. No informed consent about emotional harm, no right to withdraw clearly established. Zimbardo was both researcher and authority figure. Conflict of interest. Prisoners weren't protected. Their suffering was entertainment for guards. And data for Zimbardo. The experiment became famous. Textbooks cited it. Movies made about it. Symbol of how situations create evil. But scientifically, it's weak. Confounded variables. Small sample. Demand characteristics. Researcher bias. It proved less than claimed, yet damage was real. Prisoners suffered. Some had lasting psychological effects. Guards learned they could enjoy cruelty. Zimbardo learned nothing stopped him, until his girlfriend intervened. The experiment revealed something, just not what Zimbardo thought. It revealed researchers can. Experiment number 2, Unit 731, 1932 to 1945. Manchuria, Japanese-occupied China, a secret military unit, Unit 731. Officially, epidemic prevention and water purification. Actually, biological warfare research, human experimentation, on massive scale. Led by General Shiro Ishii, microbiologist, physician. Convinced that biological weapons were future of warfare, needed to test them on humans, thousands of humans, Chinese prisoners, Russian prisoners, Korean prisoners, anyone Japan captured. Called them logs, not people, logs. Dehumanization enabled atrocities. The experiments were systematic, scientific, evil. They infected prisoners with diseases, bubonic plague, cholera, anthrax, typhoid. Watched them die. Documented symptoms, progression, time until death. All carefully recorded, for science, for warfare. They performed vivisections, surgery without anesthesia, on living prisoners, cutting them open, examining organs while still alive, because they wanted to see disease effects on living tissue. Dead tissue changes, decomposes. They needed living subjects, so they operated on conscious, restrained prisoners, who screamed until they died. Frostbite experiments. They'd expose prisoners to extreme cold until limbs froze solid. Then they'd test thawing methods. Pour water on frozen limbs. Different temperatures. Document results. Sometimes they'd shatter frozen limbs. Test if they'd survive. They usually didn't. Limbs amputated. Infections. Death. Pressure experiments. They'd place prisoners in chambers. Alter pressure. Simulate high altitude. Watch what happened. Eyes bulged. Blood vessels burst. Internal organs ruptured. They'd document everything. Time until unconsciousness. Time until death. Autopsy findings. Weapon testing. They'd tie prisoners to stakes. Detonate biological bombs nearby. Measure infection rates. Casualty ranges. Effectiveness. They'd shoot prisoners with disease-infected bullets. Document wound infections. Survival rates. Treatment resistance. Prisoners were targets, test subjects, data points. They tested grenades, flamethrowers, chemical weapons on living prisoners. Different distances, different exposures. Sometimes they'd use children, infants, pregnant women. Test weapons on all demographics. Comprehensive data. Complete inhumanity. Venereal disease experiments. They'd infect prisoners with syphilis, gonorrhea. Force them to have intercourse with other prisoners. Spread disease. Document transmission rates. Progression in different populations. Sometimes they'd rape prisoners. As part of experiments. Forced infection. Documented suffering. They performed forced transfusions. Wrong blood types. Watched reactions. Injected prisoners with animal blood, horse blood, monkey blood. Documented results. Death, usually. Sometimes prolonged suffering. Always recorded. Some experiments had no scientific value. Pure sadism. They'd inject prisoners with seawater. See how long they survived. They'd centrifuge prisoners, spin them until they died. They'd deprive prisoners of food and water. Document starvation progression. Death timelines. All unnecessary. All evil. Between 1932 and 1945, at least 3,000 people were killed directly by Unit 731 experiments. Some estimates reach 10,000 or more. Nobody knows exact numbers. Records were destroyed. When Japan surrendered, Ishii ordered evidence eliminated, buildings burned, documents destroyed, remaining prisoners executed. Cover-up was systematic, but the scientists survived. After the war, the United States granted immunity in exchange for data, the human experimentation data. United States wanted biological warfare research. Unit 731 had it. Detailed, comprehensive, evil, but useful. So America made deal. No prosecution, no war crimes trials, just give us the data. They did. Shiro Ishii never faced justice, lived until 1959, died of throat cancer, age 67, never apologized, never expressed remorse. Most Unit 731 scientists went unpunished. Some became prominent physicians, university professors, pharmaceutical company executives, successful careers, built on thousands of corpses. The Soviet Union tried some Unit 731 members. 1949, Khabarovsk war crime trials, 12 defendants, all found guilty. Sentences ranged from 2 to 25 years. But most Unit 731 members were never tried, protected by United States, in exchange for data from human experiments. Was the data valuable, medically? Not really. Most experiments were poorly designed. Uncontrolled variables, small sample sizes, biased recording. The science was bad. The ethics worse. We gained little, except proof that humans can rationalize anything, call anything science, if they want data badly enough. Unit 731 represented experimental science without ethics. Results were due. Experiment number 3. The Monster Study. January 1939. University of Iowa, Speech Pathology Department. Researcher Wendell Johnson and graduate student Mary Tudor designed an experiment. Study stuttering. Test a theory. Does negative feedback cause stuttering? Or does stuttering cause negative feedback? Johnson believed stuttering was learned, not genetic, not physical, psychological, caused by negative attention to normal speech disfluencies. Parents telling children, "Don't stutter," creates stuttering by making children self-conscious, anxious about speech. The theory was debatable. Johnson wanted proof. The experiment required subjects, children, orphans specifically, from the Iowa Soldiers' Orphans Home in Davenport. 22 children, ages 5 to 15. Orphans were convenient, no parents to object, minimal oversight, perfect subjects for controversial experiment. Tudor divided children into 4 groups. Group 1, children who stuttered, given positive feedback. Encouraged, praised, told they spoke well. Group 2, children who stuttered, given negative feedback. Criticized, corrected, told their speech was terrible. Group 3, children with normal speech, given positive feedback. Reinforcement, praise. Group 4, children with normal speech, given negative feedback. The experimental group. Normal speakers told they were starting to stutter, that their speech was defective, that they needed to stop immediately. Group 4 was the key. These were children with normal speech, no stuttering. But Tudor told them they were developing speech problems, told them constantly, every session, multiple times per week, for months. Criticized their speech, pointed out tiny hesitations, normal disfluencies, called them stutters, made children hyper-aware, anxious, self-conscious. The children in Group 4 deteriorated quickly. They became reluctant to speak, anxious about conversation. Some developed actual stuttering from being told they stuttered. Others became silent, withdrew, stopped talking unless absolutely necessary. Their confidence destroyed, their speech worse, all from negative feedback about problems that didn't exist. One girl refused to speak in school, would only whisper. Another boy developed severe anxiety, would cry when asked to talk. These were normal children. Before the experiment broke them. For 6 months, Tudor conducted sessions, criticizing, correcting, creating problems where none existed. At the end, Tudor wrote her thesis, documented results. Johnson was satisfied. The theory was confirmed. Negative feedback creates speech problems. The experiment worked, scientifically. The children paid the price. But then ethical reality hit. What they'd done was obvious. They'd harmed children. Intentionally. For research. The experiment was never published. Johnson and Tudor agreed to keep it quiet. Too controversial. Too unethical. It became forgotten. Hidden. Known as the monster study. Because colleagues called it monstrous. When they learned what had happened. Decades later, the study resurfaced. 2001. San Jose Mercury News investigated. Found the records. Interviewed survivors. The children, now elderly, still suffered. Speech anxiety, low confidence, psychological scars. 60 years later, from 6 months of negative feedback. In childhood, the University of Iowa apologized. 2002. Acknowledged ethical violations. Called it regrettable. Settled lawsuit with survivors. $600,000. Split among victims. Too little, too late. But an acknowledgement. Wendell Johnson had died 1965. Never faced consequences. Never publicly apologized. His theory became influential, but his methods were indefensible. The experiment proved something, just not what he intended. It proved researchers could justify harming children, if results seemed important enough. Moving to Experiment 4. Experiment number 4. Little Albert Experiment, 1920. Johns Hopkins University. Psychologist John Watson and graduate student Rosalie Reimer conducted experiment. Study classical conditioning. In humans. Specifically, fear conditioning. Could fear be learned? Could neutral stimulus become frightening through association? Their subject, Albert B., 9 months old. Healthy infant. Mother worked at hospital. She consented. What she consented to wasn't entirely clear. Did she understand what would happen? Probably not. Watson wasn't fully transparent. Informed consent wasn't priority. Getting results was. Watson first tested Albert. Exposed him to various stimuli. White rat, rabbit, dog, monkey, masks, burning newspaper. Albert showed no fear. Curious. Reached for animals. Normal infant response. No inherent fears. Good baseline. Then conditioning began. Watson showed Albert the white rat. When Albert reached for it, Watson struck steel bar with hammer. Behind Albert's head. Loud noise. Sudden, startling. Albert cried. Jumped. Natural fear response to sudden loud noise. They repeated this. White rat, loud noise, white rat, loud noise. 7 pairings over 2 sessions, 1 week apart. After 7 pairings, Albert was conditioned. When shown white rat, he cried, tried to crawl away, even without noise. The rat itself now caused fear. Classical conditioning successful. But Watson wanted more. Generalization. Would Albert's fear extend to similar objects? They tested. White rabbit. Albert cried. Dog. Cried. Fur coat. Cried. Cotton wool. Cried. Watson with white beard. Cried. Anything white and fuzzy triggered fear. The conditioning generalized. Beyond the original stimulus, Watson documented everything. Photos, detailed notes. This was important research, proving behaviorism principles. Proving humans were conditioned. Like Pavlov's dogs, emotions weren't innate. They were learned, taught, manipulated. This had implications for psychology, for understanding humans. But then the experiment ended. Not because Watson finished, because Albert's mother removed him from hospital. She moved away, left area, took Albert with her. Watson never saw Albert again, never deconditioned him, never removed the fear. Just let him leave. Traumatized infant, conditioned to fear things that shouldn't be frightening. Watson published results. 1920. Conditioned emotional reactions. Became famous. Textbook example. Proof of classical conditioning in humans. Watson became celebrity psychologist. Influential, successful. The experiment made his career. What happened to Albert? Watson didn't follow up, didn't care. The experiment was finished, data collected. Albert's fate was irrelevant. For decades, nobody knew. Albert B. was anonymous, disappeared into history, a case study, not a person. Recent research attempted identification, 2009. Psychologist Hallbeck investigated, found candidate, Douglas Merritt. Infant at Johns Hopkins. Right age, right timeline. Mother worked at hospital, fit perfectly. But there was problem. Douglas had hydrocephalus, neurological condition, present from birth. He died age 6, 1925. If Douglas was Albert, ethical violations were worse. Watson knowingly experimented on neurologically compromised child, never disclosed it, made condition worse. The child was already suffering. Watson added psychological trauma. But another researcher disagreed. 2014, Russell Powell and Nancy Digdon proposed different candidate. William Barger, also at Johns Hopkins, right timing, lived to age 87, died 2007. Relatives reported he had aversion to dogs. Throughout life. Possibly Albert? We don't know for certain. Either way, Watson created fear in an infant. Deliberately. For science. Never removed it. Never followed up. Never cared about long-term harm. Just collected data, published, moved on. The experiment was scientifically successful, ethically catastrophic. Today, this experiment would never be approved. Institutional review boards would reject it immediately. Informed consent, risk-benefit analysis, protection of vulnerable subjects, all violated. But in 1920, ethics were minimal. Science was progress. Subjects were tools. Little Albert was experiment, not person. And Watson saw no problem with that. Moving to Experiment 5 in Part 3. Experiment number 5. The Milgram Experiment. July 1961. Yale University. Psychologist Stanley Milgram began experiment. Study obedience. Would ordinary people harm others if ordered by authority? The Holocaust was recent memory. Nazi defense was following orders. Were Germans uniquely obedient? Or would anyone obey? Including Americans? Milgram recruited volunteers. Through newspaper ads. $40 payment. Study of learning and memory. That's what ads said. Not true. Study was about obedience, about how far people would go. When told to hurt someone, participants arrived at Yale, met experimenter, white lab coat, clipboard, official. Another participant was already there. Middle-aged man, friendly, mild-mannered. Actually, he was Confederate, actor, working with Milgram, but real participant didn't know. The experimenter explained, "This is learning study. One person teaches, one learns. Word pairs. Teacher reads words, learner recalls. Wrong answers get punished. Electric shocks. Help learner remember. Simple. They drew lots. Rigged. Real participant always became teacher. Confederate always became learner. They went to separate rooms. Learner strapped into chair. Electrodes attached. Teacher watched. Then teacher led to other room. Could hear learner through wall, but couldn't see him. Teacher sat before shock generator. Large device. Switches labeled. 15 volts to 450 volts. Labels ranged. Slight shock, moderate shock, strong shock, danger severe shock, 300. The machine looked real, professional, official. It was fake, no actual shocks. But teacher believed it was real. Experimenter gave instructions. Read word pairs. Test learner. Wrong answer, shock. Each wrong answer, increase voltage. Start at 15 volts. Go up. Follow protocol. Experimenter would monitor. Make sure procedure followed correctly. Teacher agreed. Began. First few questions, learner answered correctly. Then mistakes. Teacher administered shocks. 15 volts. 30. 45. Learner made sounds. Ugh, uncomfortable. Teacher continued. 75 volts. Learner grunted. 90 volts. Louder complaints. 105. Painful sounds. At 120 volts, learner yelled. Shocks hurt. Please stop. Teacher looked at experimenter. Should I continue? Experimenter said please continue. It's necessary. Teacher hesitated. Continued. 150 volts. Learner screamed. Demanded release. Said he wanted out. Refused to continue. Teacher stopped. Told experimenter he wants to quit. Experimenter said the experiment requires you continue. Teacher protested. Experimenter insisted. You have no choice. You must continue. Teacher reluctantly resumed. Higher voltages, louder screams. 210 volts. Learner pounded wall, yelling. 300 volts. Desperate screaming, banging. Then silence. No response to questions. Teacher panicked. What happened? Is he okay? Experimenter said silence counts as wrong answer. Continue shocking. 375 volts. Nothing. 400. Nothing. Teacher reached maximum. 450 volts. Marked XXX. Teacher shocked an unresponsive person at maximum voltage because experimenter said to. 65% of participants went to 450 volts. Full obedience. Despite screaming, despite silence, despite conscience, they obeyed. The learner was fine, never shocked, acting. After experiment, he came out. Healthy, smiling. Teacher was relieved, confused, traumatized. Some participants wept. During experiment, shaking, sweating, pleading to stop, but continuing, following orders, even while distressed. They obeyed authority, over their own judgment, over another's suffering. Milgram concluded, ordinary people will harm others if authority demands it. Not Germans specifically. Everyone. Situational factors matter more than personality. Orders from legitimate authority override personal ethics. This explained Holocaust. Abu Ghraib. My lie. Atrocities everywhere. Ordinary people, following orders. But the experiment had problems. Severe psychological distress inflicted on participants. No proper informed consent. Deception necessary but extreme. Participants believed they'd hurt someone. Seriously. That belief caused trauma. Some participants had lasting effects. Guilt, nightmares, questioning themselves. How could I do that? Modern ethics boards wouldn't approve Milgram experiment. Too much deception, too much stress. Risk exceeds benefit. But in 1961, ethical guidelines were minimal. Informed consent wasn't standard. Deception was acceptable. If science advanced, Milgram got results, got famous. Participants got trauma, got $40. The findings were important. But was it worth the cost? Did we need to traumatize hundreds to learn humans obey authority? Couldn't we have guessed? The Holocaust already proved it. Milgram documented it, quantified it, but caused harm doing so. An experiment that worked, but went horribly wrong. Because it harmed people. To prove humans harm people. The irony was profound. Moving to Experiment 6. Experiment number 6. David Reimer case. August 22, 1965. Winnipeg, Canada. Bruce and Brian Reimer born. Identical twin boys. 7 months later, routine circumcision. Bruce went first. Electrocautery device malfunction. Penis burned. Severely, irreparably. Surgical error. Catastrophic. Parents devastated. What now? Bruce's penis destroyed. Medical options limited. 1960s. Reconstructive surgery was primitive. Doctors offered little hope. Then they saw television program, John Money, psychologist, Johns Hopkins, expert on gender. Claimed gender is learned, not innate. Nurture over nature. Parents could raise boy as girl. He'd develop female identity. If started early. Before age 2, critical period, plasticity. The brain would adapt. Parents contacted Money, desperate, hoping. Money was confident. This was perfect case. Identical twins. One with damaged penis. Other normal. Raise damaged twin as girl, other as boy. Compare development. Prove gender is learned. Not biological. Revolutionary. Scientifically important. Money was enthusiastic. July 1967. Bruce was 22 months old. Parents consented. Money performed sex reassignment. Surgical castration. External female genitalia created. Bruce became Brenda. Parents instructed. Raise her as girl. Never tell her. She was born female. Completely. No ambiguity. Money insisted. Any doubt would ruin experiment. Contaminate results. Parents complied. Bought dresses, dolls, feminine toys. called her Brenda, used female pronouns, tried to raise her as girl. Brian, the twin, was raised as boy. Normal development. The comparison began. Money monitored. Annual visits to Johns Hopkins. Interviews, assessments, photos, detailed documentation, Money published reports. The case was success. Brenda was developing as normal girl. Gender reassignment worked. Nature versus nurture debate settled. Nurture won. But Money was lying. Brenda wasn't thriving. She rejected feminine clothes, preferred trucks, rough play, wanted to stand to urinate, like her brother. She didn't feel like girl, felt wrong, confused, unhappy. Parents struggled. Teachers noticed problems. Brenda was bullied, different. Masculine behaviors in female body. She didn't fit anywhere. Money's annual evaluations were traumatic. He'd interview twins separately, ask invasive questions about genitals, sexual feelings, development. Some sessions included showing twins explicit images, having them mimic positions, rehearsing sexual acts. Money called it sex education, preparing them. The twins called it abuse. Felt violated, hated the visits. Parents didn't know extent. Money controlled narrative. Brenda became increasingly distressed, depressed, suicidal, age 13, refused to see Money, refused to continue as girl. Told parents she'd kill herself if forced to continue. Parents broke down, told truth. Bruce was born male. Accident during circumcision. They'd tried to help. Money said it would work. It didn't. Brenda felt relief. Finally, explanation. Why she never felt right. Not insane, not broken, just lied to. Brenda transitioned back. Became David. Testosterone injections. Chest reconstruction. Phalloplasty. Multiple surgeries. Creating functional penis. Difficult, painful, but necessary. David needed to be male. What he always felt, what he always was. Biology wasn't learned. It was innate. Money was wrong. But Money never admitted it. Continued publishing. Case study was success. Supported his theory. Gender is malleable. David contacted journalists. 1997. Told true story. Expose Money. Stop the lies. Milton Diamond published Truth. Medical community shocked. The case was failure. Money had misrepresented everything. Decades of false conclusions. Based on one coerced child, who suffered enormously. David tried to move on, married, became stepfather. But trauma remained. Depression, anger. His twin brother Brian also struggled. Money's experiment damaged both. Brian became schizophrenic, drug addiction, died by suicide. 2002. Overdose, age 36. 2 years later. David also committed suicide. May 2004. Age 38. Shotgun, parking lot. Ended suffering, ended pain. Money's experiment destroyed him. Destroyed his brother. Destroyed their parents' peace. All to prove theory. Wrong theory. But Money never apologized. Died 2006. Still defending his work. Still claiming success. The David Reimer case revealed gender identity is biological, not purely learned. You can't reassign it surgically, psychologically, through conditioning. It's innate. Reimer proved it. By suffering through Money's experiment, by refusing to be what Money insisted he was, by fighting for his true identity, then by dying. Unable to overcome the trauma. The experiment failed. The subject died. And Money never accepted responsibility. Moving to Experiment 7 in Part 4. Experiment number 7. The Aversion Project. 1971 to 1989. South Africa. Apartheid-Era. Military service mandatory for white males. But military had problem. Homosexuality. It was illegal. Immoral, according to government. Security risk. Must be eliminated. Cured. The solution. Aversion Project. Military program. Conversion therapy. Forced. Systematic. Brutal. South African Defense Force identified homosexual soldiers. Through screening, interrogation, informants. Once identified, soldiers faced choice. Not really choice. Court-martial and imprisonment, or treatment. Ward 22. One military hospital, Pretoria, psychiatric unit, conversion therapy clinic. Soldiers chose treatment because prison was worse. Or so they thought. Ward 22 was run by military psychiatrists. Dr. Aubrey Levin, most notorious, chief psychiatrist, enthusiastic, sadistic. He believed homosexuality was mental illness, curable through behavior modification, aversion therapy, electroshock, chemical castration, whatever it took. The therapy began with evaluation, soldiers interviewed, sexual history documented. Then treatment started. Aversion therapy, soldiers shown homosexual imagery, pornography, while receiving painful stimuli, electric shocks, nausea-inducing drugs, creating association. Homosexual attraction equals pain, nausea, suffering, classical conditioning, Pavlovian, evil. Electroshock was common. Electrodes attached to legs, arms, sometimes genitals. Soldiers shown images, men embracing, kissing, sexual acts. Each image accompanied by shock, increasing voltage, painful, traumatic. Sessions lasted hours, days, weeks, until soldiers claimed cure, until they said they were heterosexual now. Whether true or lie, anything to stop torture. Chemical castration used frequently, hormones, drugs, reducing testosterone, killing sex drive entirely. If can't eliminate homosexual attraction, eliminate all attraction, make them asexual. Problem solved. Side effects were severe: depression, weight gain, breast development, osteoporosis, permanent damage. But military didn't care. Homosexuality was eliminated. Success. Some soldiers received more extreme treatment: surgical, sex reassignment surgery. Forced. If soldier was too effeminate, too obviously gay, couldn't be fixed, couldn't be made masculine, then eliminate the problem, make them female. Forced transition. No consent, no choice. Estimates suggest up to 900 soldiers underwent forced sex reassignment between 1971 and 1989. Mutilated, destroyed, for being gay. The surgeries were barbaric, performed by military doctors, not specialists. Results were poor, painful, disfiguring. Soldiers woke up castrated, with constructed vaginas. Told they were women now, discharged from military, given female identity documents, sent back to society, traumatized, mutilated, expected to adapt. Many couldn't. Suicide rates were high. Levin was particularly sadistic. Former patients described torture beyond protocol. Levin enjoyed it. Humiliated patients, abused them, called them names, told them they were sick, disgusting, evil, needed to be fixed or eliminated. He had power, military authority, no oversight, no ethics committee, no patient rights. Ward 22 was his kingdom. Patients were victims. The program continued 18 years. Thousands underwent treatment. Many were broken. Some committed suicide. During treatment, after, unable to cope, unable to recover. Others survived, but damaged. Physically, psychologically, sexually, scarred permanently. The treatment didn't work, didn't change orientation, just created trauma, destroyed lives. Apartheid ended 1994. Ward 22 closed. Records were destroyed. Cover-up systematic. Levine fled to Canada. 2000. Started practice. Calgary. Sexual medicine specialist. Ironic and horrifying. 2010. He was arrested. Sexual assault. Multiple patients. Pattern of abuse. Continued from South Africa. Convicted. Sentenced to 5 years. Served 3. Deported back to South Africa. 2013. Survivors sought justice. Truth and Reconciliation Commission addressed some cases, but Aversion Project wasn't priority. Apartheid had bigger crimes: massacres, torture, disappearances. Forced conversion of gay soldiers was footnote. Most perpetrators never faced justice. Levine never answered for Ward 22, only for later crimes. In Canada, the Aversion Project was state-sanctioned torture, disguised as medicine, psychiatry weaponized, used to eliminate homosexuality. Through pain, through mutilation, through destruction of human beings. An experiment in behavioral modification that failed, but destroyed thousands trying, went horribly wrong because it was wrong from conception, treating people as problems, to be solved or eliminated. Moving to Experiment 8. Experiment number 8. Guatemala Syphilis Experiments, 1946 to 1948. Guatemala, United States Public Health Service conducted experiments, led by Dr. John Cutler. Same doctor involved with Tuskegee study. He wanted more data. Tuskegee was observational, patients already infected. Cutler wanted controlled infection, deliberate, on healthy subjects, test treatments. Penicillin was new, needed testing, on humans, without consent. Guatemala was perfect. Poverty, weak government, no oversight. United States had influence, money, power. Guatemalan officials cooperated for funding, for support, selling their citizens for American experiments. 1,400 people became subjects, prisoners, soldiers, mental patients, sex workers, vulnerable populations, perfect for exploitation. The experiments required infecting subjects with syphilis, gonorrhea, chancroid. How? Several methods. First, they tried sex workers, infected sex workers with bacteria, then sent them to have sex with prisoners, soldiers, infecting them, monitoring infection rates, treatment responses, using humans as petri dishes, and infection vectors. But sexual transmission was unreliable. Inconsistent rates. Cutler needed better method, more controlled. So they escalated. Direct inoculation. They'd scrape subjects' genitals, penis, vagina, creating abrasions, open wounds, then apply infected material, bacteria-rich solutions, directly into wounds, forced infection, guaranteed transmission, better data. Some subjects were inoculated in other sites, arms, faces, mouths, wherever abrasions could be created. Bacteria applied, infection observed, documented, treatment tested. Some got penicillin, some didn't. Control group had to compare, see if treatment worked, by letting some suffer, untreated, progressive disease, for science. Mental patients were particularly vulnerable, couldn't consent, didn't understand, couldn't resist. Perfect subjects. Cutler infected dozens. Many never received treatment, died from infections, syphilis complications, neurological damage, because they were control group, or because Cutler forgot them. Either way, dead. For data. One subject was particularly tragic. A woman, psychiatric patient, identified only as Berta. She had epilepsy, mental disability, terminal syphilis, already dying when Cutler found her. He saw opportunity, infected her, multiple sites, genitals, anus, mouth, eyes, massive bacterial load, wanted to see what happened. She died. 90 days later, autopsy performed, brain examined, data collected, life destroyed. For science. Sex workers were infected deliberately, then not told, sent back to work, infecting clients, spreading disease. Cutler knew that was part of experiment. Transmission studies. How quickly does it spread? How many get infected? Data gathered, lives ruined, communities infected, nobody cared. Results mattered, not people. Soldiers were told they were receiving medical care, checkups, disease prevention. Instead, infected. Some were treated, some weren't. They didn't know, couldn't object. Military followed orders. Soldiers had no choice. Used, infected, discarded. Some died, some were disabled. Syphilis causes neurological damage, blindness, paralysis, insanity, long-term effects. Cutler documented everything, then left, back to United States, unpunished. The experiments ended 1948. Why? Not ethics, not concern. Results were obtained, data collected. Cutler had enough. He moved on. Other projects, other victims. Guatemala was finished. Subjects were abandoned, infected. Some treated incompletely, some not at all. Left to suffer, to spread disease, to die. While Cutler published. Advanced career, Became respected, expert in STDs, built reputation, on Guatemalan corpses. The experiments stayed secret, decades, until 2010. Professor Susan Reverby discovered documents, archived papers. She published findings, revealed horrors. American government infected 1,400 Guatemalans, deliberately, without consent. 83 died directly. Hundreds more from complications, spread infections, secondary victims, families, partners, children, born with congenital syphilis, all traceable to Cutler's experiments. President Obama apologized. 2010, United States expressed regret, called it unethical, terrible, wrong, promised investigation. Compensation was discussed, survivors located, some still alive, elderly, sick, traumatized. They filed lawsuit against United States, seeking justice, compensation, acknowledgement. Courts dismissed case. 2012, sovereign immunity. Government can't be sued, not for experiments, even horrific ones. No legal remedy, no justice, just apology. Empty words. Guatemala syphilis. Experiments proved scientists can do anything. If subjects are vulnerable, if location is remote, if oversight is absent, ethics vanish, humanity disappears. Experiments proceed. People become data. Experiment number 9. Holmesburg Prison Experiments. 1951 to 1974. Philadelphia. Holmesburg Prison. Medium security facility. Housed inmates. But also served another purpose. Human experimentation site. Operated by University of Pennsylvania. Dermatologist Albert Kligman, who saw prisoners as research material. His words, "All I saw before me were acres of skin. It was like a farmer seeing a fertile field for the first time." Kligman had contract, access to prisoners, for experiments, dermatological, chemical, pharmaceutical, biological, weapons testing. CIA funded some. Army funded others. Private corporations paid for cosmetic testing. Holmesburg became laboratory. Prisoners became subjects. For money. Small payments. Few dollars. For participating, inmates volunteered. Technically, but coerced. Prison conditions were terrible, overcrowded, violent. Any money helped. Any escape from cell, even temporary. Worth it. So they volunteered. For experiments they didn't understand. With risks never explained. Kligman tested everything. Cosmetics, skin creams, soaps, shampoos, applied to prisoners' skin, observing reactions, irritation, rashes, chemical burns, some mild, some severe. Permanent scarring, didn't matter. Results were recorded, products refined, testing continued. Pharmaceutical testing was extensive. New drugs, experimental medications, hormones, antibiotics, psychoactive substances, administered to prisoners. Observing effects, side effects, dosage tolerances. Some drugs made prisoners sick, vomiting, diarrhea, seizures. Others caused psychological effects, hallucinations, paranoia, depression. All documented, all considered acceptable. Research must continue. The CIA was involved. MKULTRA program, testing psychoactive drugs, LSD, mescaline, others, on prisoners, without full disclosure, sometimes without any disclosure. Prisoners dosed, observed, reactions noted. The goal, mind control, interrogation techniques, behavioral modification. Prisoners were guinea pigs, expendable, classified research, secret, evil. Chemical weapons testing occurred. Army contracts, testing agents, toxins, on human skin. Prisoners exposed, blistering agents, nerve agent simulants, observing penetration rates, damage levels, treatment responses. Some agents caused permanent damage, scarring, nerve damage, chronic pain. Prisoners weren't told, didn't know they were testing weapons, just told it was skin research, for medicine, lies, all lies. One inmate, Al-Zabala, participated extensively, decades of experiments, hundreds of tests. His back was roadmap of scars, patches of discolored skin, chemical burns, biopsy sites, permanent disfigurement. He needed money. Prison wages were pennies, experiments paid dollars. So he volunteered, over and over, not understanding long-term consequences, trusting doctors. They were university researchers, must be legitimate, must be safe. They weren't. Another inmate, Leotis Jones, was imprisoned 10 years, participated in experiments 8 years, testified later, described being injected with unknown substances, skin patches applied, burning, itching, pain, told it was temporary, harmless. It wasn't. He developed health problems, skin conditions, chronic pain, blamed the experiments. No way to prove it. No medical records provided. Inmates didn't get copies, just scars. And suffering. Kligman tested dioxin, toxic chemical, component of Agent Orange, to understand its effects. For Dow Chemical, company making herbicides, defoliants, army contracts, they needed data, human toxicity data. Prisoners provided it. Kligman applied dioxin to prisoners' skin, high concentrations, far exceeding environmental exposure. Observing results: chloroquine, severe skin disease, permanent scarring, potential cancer risk. Kligman documented effects, published results. Dow got data, prisoners got scars. The experiments continued 23 years, thousands of prisoners, hundreds of different studies, finally ended 1974. Why? Not ethics, not concern for prisoners. Bad publicity. Journalists investigated, public outrage. University of Pennsylvania shut program down, distanced itself. Kligman retired, kept privileges. Professor Emeritus, never disciplined, never prosecuted. Died 2010, age 93, successful career, built on prisoner exploitation. Former inmates sued, multiple lawsuits, sought compensation, medical care. Many had chronic conditions, blamed experiments. Courts were unsympathetic. Statute of limitations. Informed consent was obtained. Prisoners volunteered. Signed forms. Even if forms were misleading. Even if risks weren't explained. Courts sided with university. Dismissed cases. Some settlements occurred, small amounts. Fraction of damages. Not justice, just closure, inadequate closure. Holmesburg experiments proved captive populations are vulnerable. Prisoners, institutionalized. They can't refuse meaningfully any consent. Experiment number 10. The Pit of Despair. 1960. University of Wisconsin. Psychologist Harry Harlow, primate researcher, famous for earlier work. Attachment theory. Mother-infant bonding. Cloth mothers versus wire mothers. Baby monkeys prefer soft contact, even without food. Revolutionary findings. Harlow was respected, influential, but his later work turned darker, much darker. Harlow was studying depression, human depression, how it develops, what causes it, what maintains it. He couldn't experiment on humans, directly, but monkeys, rhesus macaques, similar to humans, emotionally, socially, perfect models. Harlow decided to create depression, experimentally, in monkeys, by isolating them, severely, completely, in what he called vertical chamber. Others called it pit of despair. The device was stainless steel chamber, shaped like inverted pyramid, narrow, enclosed, dark, a pit. Literally, monkeys placed inside, alone, completely, no light, no sound, no social contact, no stimulation, nothing, just isolation, total, absolute, for weeks, months, to see what happened, to their minds, to their behavior. Harlow used infant monkeys, weeks old, separated from mothers, placed in chambers, left. They'd scream, initially, panic, calling for mother, no response, just silence, darkness. They'd cry, daze, then stop, exhaustion, hopelessness, depression setting in, learned helplessness. Harlow documented everything. After days in chamber, monkeys were different, withdrawn, catatonic, rocking, self-hugging, some self-harmed, biting themselves, pulling fur, banging heads, against walls, steel floor, anything, to feel something, anything. other than emptiness. The isolation destroyed them, psychologically, completely. Harlow tested duration. How long until breakdown? Days? Weeks? He varied it. Some monkeys 1 week, some months. Longer isolation meant worse damage, profound depression. Some never recovered, even after release. Returned to social groups. They couldn't integrate, couldn't interact. Sat, staring, rocking, broken, permanently. Some monkeys were isolated repeatedly, removed from chamber. Brief recovery period, then isolated again. Cycle repeated. To see cumulative effects, to see if depression worsened. It did. Each cycle caused more damage, faster breakdown, deeper depression, until monkeys were completely destroyed, psychologically, emotionally, unable to function. Harlow also experimented with social isolation methods, not just chambers, social groups where monkeys were rejected. Rape rack, device restraining female monkeys, allowing males to breed them, against their will, creating pregnancies, then observing maternal behavior, depressed mothers, abusive mothers, neglectful. Some killed their infants. Depression transferred, intergenerationally. Harlow documented this, called it useful. Understanding human abuse cycles. His students were disturbed. Some quit, couldn't stomach the experiments. Others persisted, following Harlow, learning, becoming desensitized, to suffering, to screams, to broken animals, staring, rocking, self-harming. It was science, must continue. Data must be gathered. Depression must be understood. Never mind the cost, never mind the suffering. Harlow faced criticism. 70s. Animal rights movement grew. Activists targeted his lab, called him cruel, sadistic, torturer. Harlow responded, defended work. Depression is serious, kills humans, must be studied. Animal suffering is acceptable, if humans benefit. Not everyone agreed. Many thought he'd gone too far, crossed lines, even for science. Harlow suffered personally. Depression. Ironically, his wife died. 1971. He became alcoholic. Depressed, remarried quickly. Another wife. Also died. Cancer. His depression worsened. Institutionalized briefly. Electroshock therapy, medication. He recovered. Somewhat. But his experiments continued, creating in monkeys what he suffered himself. The irony was lost on him, or ignored. 1981. Harlow died. Liver problems, alcoholism, age 70, successful career, publications, awards, recognition, built on suffering, monkey suffering, his own suffering. His experiments revealed isolation causes depression, profound, lasting, devastating. We knew this. Intuitively, Harlow proved it, scientifically, by destroying hundreds of monkeys, psychologically, breaking them, for data, for publication, for career. The experiments went horribly wrong because they were designed to cause suffering, intentional harm, for science, without questioning if that harm was justified, if that science was necessary, if there were better ways.